funny story first. Hopefully you guys think it's funny. Yesterday, I was hanging out with some friends, and we went to this like restaurant, and I was like almost an hour late. I was like, I promise, usually I'm not that late to things. You're gonna ask. Hopefully some people would agree that I'm not usually that late, but I was pretty late that day, and I was already like so hungry. But this restaurant we were going to, I was like not that hopeful. Like I love food, so usually when I go somewhere, I'll be like looking it up or like trying to figure out what I want to eat or like see if it's really gonna be like good food. And this restaurant had like okay reviews. It was like not great, not bad. So anyways, I finally get there, and I'm like the last one there, obviously, because I was like an hour late, which is fine. My friends were cool with it. And then we order, and we get like, me and my one friend, her name is Zoe, we're like ordering this dish, and it comes with a little soup. And it's like the little seaweed tofu soup, like yummy, whatever, right? And I take a bite of my soup because I'm like, it's brisk cold outside, so like I need something warm. So I take a bite of the soup, and I was like, oh, this is so good. Zoe, you need to try yours. And I'm like, this is so good, like, try the soup. Even though I was like, this restaurant is probably gonna be kind of mid, but it turned out to be great. And Zoe takes a bite of her like soup, it's like the seaweed soup, and she goes, and I'm like, why did you make that face? And she goes, I think there's dish soap in my soup. And everyone was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean dish soap? And she goes, there's literally dish soap in the soup. And I was like, no way. And then we're comparing our soups, and in hers, you could literally see like bubbles. And you could literally see, and I was like, there's no way. Like, it's probably just hot and steaming, right? Mine is clear. There's no bubbles in mine, okay? And hers is like bubbling, and then we're like, wait, you can see the rainbow. You know how like in soap, when you put it in like, if any of you guys know you wash the dishes, sometimes you can like see the rainbow, little like iridescent, whatever. You could see that rainbow in the soup, and there's no way that seaweed tofu soup is looking like a rainbow. So yeah, that was yesterday. That was a funny experience that we had when we were at that restaurant. I won't shout out the restaurant because they were nice, but it's fine. So today I want to talk about this phrase, okay? I want you guys to keep this phrase in mind, and this is going to be like the overarching theme of today. You guys ready? You guys are going to have to think and fill in this blank. Hopefully it'll come up on the screen. The statement is, ready? I will only be happy when. Did it come up? Nice. I will only be happy when. So I want you guys to take like 30 seconds, think about the answer. Think about something to fill in that blank. I will be only happy when. I would ask you guys to like come up and share, but that's probably a little, nah, not gonna do that. I'm not gonna call you guys out like that. All right, so I will only be happy when, right? And as you're thinking about what may or may not fill this answer, I was asking some of my friends this week, like when I was preparing the sermon, like at school, randomly. Friends that have no idea like that I'm preparing a sermon. I just told them, I will be only happy when, fill in the blank. And this is some of the things they said, right? One of my friends said, I will only be happy when I graduate and get that job. And then another one of my friends said, I will only be happy when I finally eat today, because I guess she hadn't eaten. And I will only be happy when I make my parents proud of me. Oof, that one deep. I will only be happy when I buy my dream car, okay, whatever dream car. And I will only be happy when my family is perfect. Those are the answers that I got, which is a little deep. None of these things are inherently bad, right? Getting good grades, wanting a family to, well, no family's gonna be perfect, but wanting families to be restored and love each other, you know. For me, graduating and getting a job or graduating and doing whatever next, none of those things are like bad, right? But I feel like all of those things, when we're able to replace Jesus with whatever fill in the blank you filled in, whatever thing you thought of, whether you thought of, I will only be happy when I finally eat today, or I'll only be happy when school is over and it's summer break, or I'll only be happy when I get a boyfriend or girlfriend, or whatever it may be. Those things, when we replace them in our lives, we replace Jesus with those things, they become idols. They become idols that we idolize, things that we really, really dream about and we really, really put on top of God. So I wanted to talk about those things today. And I wanted to talk about this overarching phrase, I will only be happy when. I feel like that's something that all of us, whatever you answered, I feel like it's really, really easy to get caught up in what you're doing day to day and forget that like what you're really chasing and what you're really going for in life, quote unquote, is like what you should be thinking about daily. Instead of just like, okay, like today's Sunday, tomorrow, Monday morning, I gotta get up. Whatever time in the morning you get up and go to school or go to work or whatever it may be, and you feel like you're just going through motions and you're putting hopes and expectations that are making you like go so hard or making you stressed and burn out and tired in the wrong places. So I want to talk about a few fill in the blanks that I think all of us, if not a lot of us, can relate to. And I know definitely when I was thinking of what to fill out in these blanks this week, I was like, this sermon ain't for nobody but me. Like, seriously. So the first fill in the blank, I will only be happy when, okay? I will only be happy when everyone loves me or everyone validates me. Oof. Celine said, that'd be me though. Yeah, that'd be me too. This one is a toughie, okay? Take like 10 seconds to think about that or like read it again in your head. I will only be happy when everyone loves me or everyone validates me. And you might be like, Celine, where you're like, oh, dang, that's me. Or you might be like, that's not me. I don't care what nobody thinks. I'm doing my own thing. I'm like boss, independent woman, whatever it may be. But in reality, everything that we do and everything that we say, no matter like the things you wear, the clothes you wear, the jokes you make to your friends, all those things are really a way for us to seek love and validation from people around us, right? From society or from your parents or whatever it may be. And again, those things aren't like inherently bad, but they can cause trouble. They can get you in a tough spot. So I have a story. I asked for permission to mention his name actually, but I was talking to Judah, hey Judah, he's not here today, so it makes me less nervous to talk about him. But I was talking to Judah this week, and Judah is like someone who I've been friends with, known for like over half my life. I'm sure some of you guys also like, we all grew up in church, right? Like a lot of your closest friends are the friends that you either have had for a long time or what it may be. And an interesting thing about my relationship with Judah is we're like the type of friends who we've known each other for so long that we tend to not like really check up on each other. Like, do you have those friends that you just know, or maybe you minister with and you see all the time, or maybe you work with or you go to school with or whatever it may be, and you just never really like check up on them? And so I was talking to Judah this week and I randomly said, hey, instead of like, hey, what do we got to do for AGC? Or, hey, this. I just said, hey, like, how are you? How have you been? And I just thought he was, like, sometimes, if you guys know Judah, like, I'm not trying to call shots because he's not here, but he's going to watch this, so I can't do that. But sometimes Judah's, like, his answer's, like, good, or, like, like, you know what I mean? And I thought that's what he was going to say, like, oh, good, or oh, tiring, or whatever. But no, he actually, like, shared with me, like, opened up. And I was really thankful, and then one thing he said that, like, caught me, like, off guard was, like, oh, he said, I wish that more people would ask me that in general, like, friends that I have and stuff like that. Like, I guess one of the things you could say was that Judah's expectations and hopes was that, like, people in general, the reasoning, would ask him that too. And I was like, that made me think, like, I feel like that's also me too, like, and maybe for you guys too, like when friends don't check up on you or when people don't say things or do things or whatever expression it may be to show that they care about you or they love you, we can easily start to get like a little bit bitter and like a little bit like low-key, like resentful towards those friends, right? And I want to open up to a person in the Bible who also was feeling the same way and a little bit bitter. His name was King Saul. So can we open up to 1 Samuel 18, verse 6 through 9? We're going to be getting the word today. We're going to be reading quite a bit of scripture, but hope you guys just stay with me, okay? So for context, 1 Samuel 18, 6 through 7. This is right after, if you guys know this famous story of David and Goliath, this is right after David slayed Goliath. That's the only time I'm going to say slay in the sermon, but this is the one time David slayed Goliath, and then this is like afterwards. All right, so I'm going to read it. As they were coming home, I have it right here. When David returned from killing the Philistine, the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, songs of joy, and musical instruments. The women sang as they played and danced, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David has his 10,000s. Then Saul became very angry for saying this, and for this saying displeased him. Oh, I can't English today. And he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, but to me they have ascribed only thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? Saul looked at David with suspicion and jealousy from that day forward. So basically, right after David had defeated Goliath, Saul was king at the time, right? And David was just someone who, David came out of the blue. He was really like just a shepherd, no one super famous or exciting or whatever. But all of a sudden, he defeats Goliath, and then he's going to battle. King Saul makes him like the head of the one in charge of the wars, like going into battle with the Philistines, who are their enemies. And then when David comes back, Saul's expecting everyone to be like, oh, go King Saul, like you're amazing, you're great. But no. Everyone, all the women, it says in the verses, they were saying, Saul has slain his thousands, but David his 10,000s. So Saul wasn't getting that recognition, that love, that like validation, that appreciation that he was hoping for. So that really messed him up. And if you guys continue to read further in the journey of David and King Saul basically dedicates the rest of his life to killing David, to wanting David out of the picture because he was jealous and he was bitter and he was angry. And, you know, back to my story with Judah. Judah's not like trying to do anything to nobody or anything like that. But it's the same idea where when we put our hopes in other people giving us validation and giving us love and feeling like that empty void in our lives, we tend to easily become disappointed when it doesn't add up, when it doesn't make sense. And when Judah was telling me that story about how, or like just that feeling or that thought about how he wished more people would ask him that, I started to think that I used to do that too. I used, and still oftentimes fall into those like, you know, intrusive thoughts. They be getting you. Like, oh, I wish like this person reached out to me, or like this friend like reached out to me first, or like asked me how I was doing. But I started to think like, how often do I actually take the time out of my day to reach out to those people too? Like, how often do I take the time out of my life if I'm expecting and hoping for others to reach out to me, but am I doing that for them? So that's the first kind of expectation or hope that I wanted to talk about, because I think it's so important. Like, whether it's your friends or your parents, I know for myself, I can speak at least, like, my parents didn't grow up really ever being so, like, touchy-feely, so lovey-lovey on you. And my love language is words of affirmation. So, like, the one thing I love to hear is when people are, like, just talking to me and, like, telling me how much they love me and how much I did a good job with this or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff. That sounds a little bad on my part, but that's just my love language. And I think it's because growing up, that wasn't something like you would hear a lot in my house. Like, oh, love you, like go to school or whatever. Or like, oh, I'm so proud of you for doing this, or for doing that. So that can also be something that really is like a hope and an expectation that you have, that if you're not careful of like where you put your hope and where you try to get your love and validation, can easily make you fall and slip into those, like relying on other people to fill that void for you. Woo! Number one, that was a little deep. All right, number two, okay? This one I know a lot of my college students, and maybe even high school, I'm sure, college students, post-college will relate to. I will only be happy when. Number two, I finally get the bag. Finally able to make it in life. Yeah, all the boys in the back doing something like this. Yeah. I will finally be able to buy that dream car, buy those new shoes, buy those new clothes, buy that new bag, whatever answer or blank you might fill. I know you guys are thinking about it right now. You guys have your own blank that you're filling in. That's something that is so almost like dangerous to talk about, but sometimes it's almost taboo, right? Like talking about money, because it's like, well, in my philosophy class, I'm taking philosophies of the good life, whatever that means, right? And one day our professor was talking to us about like how ultimately everything that we do in life is just to make us happy. And like everyone in class is like this when he's talking. And he's trying to like really milk the answers and get us to like talk. And he goes, so why do you go to school? You go to school to get a job. But why do you get a job? You get a job To make money. And why do you make money? You make money so you can buy things. And why do you want to buy things? And he went on and on for like a whole 45 minutes trying to talk about these things. And I just like thought to myself, like, he's not wrong. Like, sometimes we're so focused, like tunnel vision focused on whether it's your school, whether it's your work, whether it's whatever it is you're trying to do to eventually get the bag. Like, really, it can become so like toxic and so harmful to our lives without us realizing. So I want to read about another person, and this one shook me up. Okay, when I was like preparing the sermon, and I was talking to Judah a lot about this person. His name is, you might know him. His name is Judas Iscariot. If you guys know, Judas was one of the closest people to Jesus. Not amongst the 12, but he was one of the 12. So he was the one that was like besties with Jesus. Where Jesus would go, they would all go. When Jesus would speak, they would be there. When Jesus would be doing miracles, they would also be there too, like watching and witnessing all of this happen. But this was Judas's downfall, okay? So there's a few verses I want to read about Judas just for us to learn. So let's open up to John 12, verses 4 through 8. These are kind of long. You guys want to read these with me? 4 through 8, yeah. All right, can we read these together? 1, 2, 3. But Judas Iscariot, guys, come on, let's read it together. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, the one who was going to betray him, said, "Why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor?" Now he said this not because he cared about the poor, for he had never cared about them, but because he was a thief. And since he had the money box, serving as a treasurer for the 12 disciples, he used to pilfer what was put into it. Is there more? So Jesus said, "Let her alone so that she may keep the rest of it for the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me." Amen. So turns out Judas was thieving the whole time. Okay, so basically, if you think to give you context of like today's day and age, so basically Judas was the one who was holding the church offering, the money bag, that little box over there where you guys put your offering. Basically, Judas was in charge of that. And Mary, the context is Mary was giving oil to Jesus' feet. She was pouring out this expensive oil, however much 300 denarii converts to today, but she was pouring out this oil onto Jesus' feet because she was trying to bless him, because she loved him, and she ultimately what she wanted was like Jesus' presence. But then Judas comes around and he's like, "Why are you wasting so much money on pouring out this perfume on his feet? Like, you could be giving to the poor, you could be doing so much other things with this money. Like, why is it a big deal to bring this money to Jesus, bring it to the church, bring it for the kingdom?" But it turns out that Judas didn't even actually care about the poor. He didn't even care about, like, his excuses. He was just a thief. And he just wanted this money. And because of his greed, like, it ultimately led him to do, I'm sure you guys know, one of the biggest things, which was, betray Jesus. So let's open up to that. In Matthew 26, verse 14 to 16, I'll read this. Then one of the 12 disciples, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me if I hand Jesus over to you?" Dang. And they weighed out 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, Judas began looking for an opportune time to betray Jesus. So, again, like, Judas never even had the intention of using the money that he was like, "Why are you wasting this perfume, wasting this precious thing on Jesus' feet? Like, use the money, sell it, give it to the poor, or like do something better," what he thought was better with the money. And similarly, like, he was also stealing the offering money. And this greed and like desire for money ultimately led him to betray Jesus. And then Jesus was crucified after that. And the story goes on, like you guys know. So if you think about it, if Judas, someone who was so close to Jesus, someone who was, like I said, there with Jesus when he spoke, there with Jesus when he did miracles, and literally called himself one of Jesus' friends, walked alongside him in life, physically could see Jesus, was willing to betray Jesus and do like this disillusion thing because of his need and greed for money, how much more likely is it for us who don't physically see Jesus, who often lack with spending time with Jesus, who often forget about Jesus, to fall into the same trap of like, as long as I catch the bag, I don't need to worry. As long as I focus on, I'm so busy with my school, I'm so busy with my assignments, projects, whatever it may be, that I'm going to forget about Jesus. I'm going to forget about God just for this weekend, just for one Sunday, and whatever it may be, right? Like, again, it's not, like, I don't want you guys to think like, okay, so I'll just not work, or I'll just forget about chasing, wanting to get money or be successful or whatever it may be, because that's not what I mean. What I mean is when money and the need and crave for like just whatever that status may be, like riches and success and fame or whatever it is above your desire for Jesus, and just for like anything else that you put above Jesus, it becomes an idol in your life and ultimately becomes a stumbling block for your relationship with God. So if you want money, if you want riches, if you want fame and status for other people to look at you and be like, dang, your new shoes are so cool, and you're like, yeah, I know, or like, dang, like you got that new job, or like you getting money or whatever, and you are like, yeah, I know, like I'm so great. If that is what you care about more than you care about Jesus, then you can never expect to truly have an authentic relationship with Jesus, because that is in your way. So, I mean, that's even true for me, right? Like, some of us are probably not, like, have that, like, job yet, right? But we're all, most of us, I believe, are students. And even though school be a struggle, the reason why you go to school, the reason why you wake up so early in the morning and slave through those assignments is because ultimately you want to graduate so that you can get a job. So it's the same thing. The point is to make sure that your intentions for why you're trying so hard to do well in school, to get A's, to ultimately get a good job or whatever it may be, isn't so that you're putting those things above God in your life and making them an idol. That was a lot. Are you guys still with me? Yeah? Okay. So that's the second part. So the first one is, I will only be happy when everyone loves me and validates me, right? Like when people see me and think I'm a good person, or when I can put up a good image in front of others, or when people come to me and like really show that they love me with their words or whatever it may be. And the second one is, I will only be happy when I finally get the bag, when I finally am able to be successful or reach that point of success that I think I deserve. And the last one, I think I'm way good on time today. The last one is, I will only be happy when I am in control. I will only be happy when I am in control. And when I was coming up, thanks, Ethan. When I was coming up with these points, like I said, like, I wasn't even trying to, like, really call myself out. But if I had to be honest, like, these three fill in the blanks are probably, like, the three that are, like, big highlights in my life. Like, if you could put a red flag on any fill in the blanks, these would probably be my biggest red flags, Wanting to have everyone love me and validate me, focusing so hard to graduate well, to get a good job, to get money, for whatever needs, and being in control. So someone else who in the Bible wanted more than anything to be in control was none other than Miss Eve. So let's open up to the Bible to see the downfall and where she ultimately was the first sin that caused Adam and Eve to separate from God. Genesis 3, verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was delightful to look at, and a tree to be desired in order to make one wise and insightful, she took some of its fruit and ate it. And she also gave some to her husband with her, and he ate it. So I really want to take a look at these verses and like almost dissect them, like bit by bit. So the first part of this verse is that the woman saw the fruit. She saw the tree for good and that it was delightful to look at. So whatever it was that she was desiring and hoping for, she thought like, that's it, like that's what I want. So she already had this pre-planned notion in her head, like, that's the fruit that I want, and I'm going to do anything to get it, right? And the next part is she saw a tree that made her wise and insightful. And the last part is that she ate it and she gave some to her husband, right? So it's like 3 separate things that happened within that one verse that all led to Eve wanting to be in control and putting that over God. Eve was so enticed with like this idea of like, I just need to know. I just want to know. I want to be in control. I want to be just like God. I want to have the wisdom, right? Because that's ultimately why she did this. And how many of us are like the same way where you're like nosy. You really want to know it all. You really want to know whether it's what's going on in that person's life or what's going on in this situation or even in your own life, like what's going to happen and plan things out to the T. Any of my type A people like that? Because that is me. I like to plan everything to the T and know and try to control like what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, how can I do it the best. And sometimes it really stresses me out more than I need to because I'm so like controlling or trying to be controlling over my own life and over my own day-to-day plans and things like that, that it really, I put more energy into it than I really need to. And yeah, I feel like Eve was definitely me, especially when I was at the end of my high school into college years. When I was in high school, I was like, I didn't really like high school that much. I don't know if y'all are in high school, it gets better maybe after high school. But when I was in high school, I really wanted to I was so nervous for college. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do in college, like how it's going to go. But all I knew is that I wanted to be able to control my life. Like I had already my 4 years of college in my head and after planned out before I even got to college. And I thought, if I'm being honest, I thought I was going to go to Jefferson, because I'm in Jefferson right now, and go to Jefferson and be pre-med. And I thought I was going to be pre-med for all 4 years, and then I would apply to med school like all the kids who are pre-meds do, and then I would go to med school, and then I would be a doctor, and then I would get successful, make the money, the riches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, God, here's my agenda. Here's my list of things that I'm trying to fulfill in life. You know, and I thought that like, oh, this is what God wants for me. But was it? Or was I just trying to force that to be what God wanted for me, you know? And as of right now, like, I can say that pretty much almost none of those things that I talked about has happened yet. And I'm already in my 4th year of college. So I really tried my best to plan out my life and to like almost be God in a sense and be like, oh, I'm going to do this, actually, God. Like, actually, I'm not going to spend time with you or something else is more important. You know, I think I know better than you what I need, which is not the case at all. And it's not that God doesn't value our dreams, and it's not that God doesn't value our goals, but do our dreams and goals really mean more to us than the true calling and the true goals that God has for us in our life? You know, like that's something that I had to really like learn and think about throughout my college years. And I will like, I feel like I say this a lot, like when I'm up here, like and when I'm talking to friends, like just wanting them to know this, but I feel like it's something that I will never stop talking about, because if I had just realized and I had just accepted that what God has for me is truly better than like what other people say I should do, you know, what other people say like is best, like the best jobs, best career. Because for me, once I got into college, the peer pressure of like seeing everyone else what they're doing and how they already got their life planned out, and like my one friend is already applying to med schools in like sophomore year, and like my other friends are like already got this job and this and this and this lined up, made me so worried and like, what about me? You know, like what's gonna happen for me? And that's when I started to like almost spiral a little bit and go down this rabbit hole of like, okay, I'm gonna take control. I'm gonna take control of like what's gonna happen next in my life. But ultimately that doesn't work out for us. So I want to open up to Jeremiah 29, verse 11. I'm sure you guys have heard or know this verse. If not, we're going to read it together. And I want to give a little context to this verse because there's so much more to it than what we usually talk about. Okay, so Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans and thoughts that I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for peace and well-being, and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope.